How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. A lot of topics to discuss tonight. We are going to be ranging it from the Steph Curry injury, Kyrie demanding a trade where his future destination could be. We're going to talk about the pettiness of Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr. Some notable coaches from the Giants possibly leaving for greener pastures. We're going to hit on concussions on the rise in the NFL, as well as some World Baseball Classic news, and if there's any fallout from it. And also, we're going to discuss why I need to avoid social media. With me, as always, my friend, Mr. Mike Zappy. How you doing, boss?
Good, man. I'm just sitting here thinking about the fact that it's the week before the Super Bowl, and you would think that it'd be calm in the NFL, but no, just so much chatter going on right now. And even in other sports, Kyrie, once again, making the headlines and stuff, So I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today, man.
Wait, man, the Super Bowl's next week?
I think so.
Oh, man, I better do a show for that. Talk about some foosball. Kyrie demands a trade out of Brooklyn. 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. Almost 2 years in a row to the day that Tom Brady retired 2 years in a row. So I guess the question is, will he reunite with King James? As a professional, he's had the most success with King James. There are other teams linked. LA Clippers, Dallas Mavericks. I like what Charles Barkley said. This guy's not a good teammate. I don't think the allure is there for teams to go jump fences for him. I mean, there will be teams that will. He's a very talented player. I don't view him as a great solution anywhere for the sheer fact that I don't view him as the alpha dog of any team. He's a complimentary piece. Given the history, the many issues he's had with many teammates, I think his best bet is going to the Lakers. And it's kind of comical in that regard because of some of the stuff that's even with LeBron and he going back to as early as this year. So that's where I'm at with it. I think he ends up with the Lakers.
Yeah, I think the Lakers make the most sense, honestly. And I think the big reason why is because of the success that him and LeBron have had together. You talk about the season where they were facing the 73-9 Golden State Warriors down 3-1 in the finals, and for them to come back and pull off one of the greatest upsets in sports history. They did it together, and a lot of that was Kyrie. I think Kyrie's always been the best complement to LeBron, right next to Dwayne Wade. And when you talk about a bad teammate, I look at it as if you're trading a Russ for a Kyrie, you're kind of getting the same player. You're just going back to an experiment we know that's worked. Russ and LeBron just didn't work. So I think that'd be also beneficial to Russ because I think a lot of us want to see KD and Russ back together. So to see them reunited in Brooklyn would be another thing that I think people would enjoy. So it's just I think the Lakers.
So you're basically saying that James Harden will go back to Brooklyn now too?
No, I think James Harden and KD are done.
and form the Brooklyn Thunder.
Yeah, no, I think those two are forever done and will never be a thing again. But yeah, as far as Kyrie goes, that team just makes the most sense. And I think the Mavericks make the least amount of sense because whether you like it or not, Luka, I mean, while he is your superstar and one of the faces of the NBA, I think a guy like Kyrie coming in to team up with Luka would hurt Luka more than help him. And whereas when you see him going to the Clippers, at least you have a couple of veteran stars that have been around for a long time, and a Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that I don't think will let Kyrie get too out of hand. But it'd be another thing for a Luka to do it. But that's the way I look.
I just can't see him going to the same arena and being on the other team. He's going to the Lakers.
Yeah, he's got to be going to the Lakers. This is a money move for the Lakers, a team that's trying to make a late push for the playoffs. Of course, that one makes the most sense.
From speaking about a questionable teammate to one that there's nothing to question about, great leader, great teammate, Steph Curry was injured tonight. That actually came over your feed.
Yeah, so it was in the fourth quarter. Warriors had the game in control. They did obviously end up winning. But Spencer Dinwiddie was driving and his knee, I believe it was Spencer Dinwiddie, his knee collided with Steph's, and you saw Steph's knee bend inward, which usually is a sign that it's your MCL. So even if he did suffer a slight tear or a complete tear, I think we're going to see Steph Curry out for a little bit. His X-rays did come back negative, and he does have an MRI scheduled for tomorrow. But this is one of those injuries that Warriors fans, they're holding their breath on this one, because while the Warriors are in playoff position, if you lose Curry for any amount of time right now at this stretch of the year, this could be we're talking about them making it in the play tournament or not even making it at all. So I would be interested to find out what it is. Hopefully it's just a small sprain and he'll be back in a week, but it definitely looks like Curry's going to be out for a little bit of time.
Yeah, no Curry, no playing, no Curry, no championship, no Curry, no nothing. That team goes as far as he takes them. And I've said on previous shows that I believe that as long as they get in the playoffs and are healthy, they can win it all regardless of how they start in the playoffs. Most likely playing. We'll see. It sucks. He is their heartbeat, so hopefully his injury will not keep him on the sidelines for too long. Going to move it over to the Pro Bowl and the 49er bench during the NFC Championship game. Pettiness is real. Derek Carr and Jimmy G. Derek Carr, best answer ever at a Pro Bowl. When they were talking about how hot he was in Vegas at different junctures of his career, he essentially said, not that hot, that's why I'll be on a new team, even though it did appear that he may have been holding back tears. I like the fact that Derek Carr standing up for himself. He deserves more respect than he was given. As far as Jimmy G goes, getting caught on camera kind of chuckling during the fiasco, which was called the quarterback position of the 49ers during the title game, I'm on Jimmy G's side here, and I'll explain why. They messed with him a lot. They showed him no respect. This is a guy who, without getting outworked for his job, lost his job. Then Trey Lance gets hurt. It got to a point prior to the season starting that Jimmy G wasn't even working out with the team. Like he was like some outcast on the side, directed to not be near the team. They tried to deal him. They tried to move on from him. Then they need him. He led them to a decent record. Brock Purdy went undefeated with them after Jimmy G's injury. He quarterbacked 7 games for them. So to see what happens in the title game, and to see that, in my opinion, Jimmy G wasn't exactly going out of his way to get activated, I think it speaks volumes about, hey, guys, this is what I think of you now. Because had Jimmy G been activated for that game, he could have come in relief for Brock Purdy, possibly taken the 49ers to another Super Bowl. Sometimes I think self-respect is more important than getting a quick one and getting into the Super Bowl. And I think in Jimmy G's case, that is truly how he feels. And it's funny because he's kind of been linked into different controversies, some not necessarily by his own doing, but as many people are aware of, the relationship in New England between Bill Belichick, Bob Kraft, Tom Brady kind of was partially fractured because of Belichick's desire to move on from Brady in favor of Jimmy G at the time. You know, he found himself in a quarterback controversy. No, I wouldn't say quarterback controversy, but a media controversy, more so than that. But honestly, I think the pettiness from both these quarterbacks is warranted. I'm on the side of both these guys.
Yeah, I'm on the side of both those guys too. I mean, going back to Jimmy G, this is a guy that, like you said, they were trying to trade, they were going to release, and then Jimmy G was kind enough to redo his contract where it was only going to be a $6 million hit this year instead of the $25 million. He didn't have to do that, but he did it. And to see the way he was mistreated, I mean, like you said, this is a guy that's made it to the NFC Championship game multiple times, made it to the Super Bowl, was half quarter away from being a Super Bowl champion. And all he has done is continue to perform. He's not going to give you the 350 yards and 4 touchdowns on a weekend basis, but he's going to give it to you sometimes. But the one thing he's going to do is he's going to manage the game.
I made a mention to you of the guy he reminds me of, and a situation that reminds me of it with the same organization. He reminds me a lot of Alex Smith.
That's exactly what he does. And it's the same way. And it's just funny that it's this organization. But then I ask myself the question is, imagine if the Patriots would have gone the Jimmy G route instead of Tom Brady. And I think the Patriots would still be in the conversation for Super Bowl. And I say that wholeheartedly with an honest feedback on that. Like, I think we wouldn't see Mac Jones there. I think we would see the Patriots probably would have made it back one time because of the system that is designed for a quarterback to succeed. If you're a good quarterback, sorry, Brett. But
And to be fair, Tom Brady's final Super Bowl victory with New England in 2018 was not exactly a great offensive showing. That was a defensive struggle through and through, 13-3 game. He played a little better than Jared Goff, but, I mean, and then you look at 19 for Brady in New England. It was evident that he needed the star cast to have the kind of seasons that he was going to hope to have. In Tampa, he got that star cast for the first 2 years, and you got a Super Bowl and another playoff and a division title after that. But man, it shows the ugly side of, a lot of fans get mad at players for not being loyal, but these are two great examples of players who have been loyal and have been on the wrong side of things. So, I implore everyone to remember as free agency approaches and everyone has their favorite players that they want to retain, keep at the forefront of your mind. It is a business.
Exactly. It is a business.
And a very cold one at that.
Yeah, and while like us in the business corporations that we work for, we could always turn around and smile too. And that's the beautiful thing about it. That's the beautiful thing about everything this country we live in is that we get that opportunity. So when you see a Jimmy G on the sideline smiling, or when you see Ryan Clark interviewing Derek Carr and Derek Carr giving the best answer ever.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It's well within their right. And that's the business side of it for them as well. Like, you made that choice. Now you get to suffer from your decisions you made this past season or whatever the case is. Because even with Derek Carr, I don't think he's gotten the best treatment while he was with the Raiders.
No, and one could question that the Raiders have been on a tailspin of poor decision-making since letting their head coach, Rich Bisaccia, go. So
before that.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you can go into. Going to flip it over to my team momentarily. Wink Martindale, Mike Kafka, and the possibility of them leaving the Giants. I'm more concerned about losing Wink right now. I actually think Mike Kafka will be returning. Wink is a finalist. There have been different accounts of if he's truly the favorite. But what hurts here is that should Wink leave, you're also talking about possibly Drew Wilkins joining him in Indy. So you're losing two good coaches because he would be the common sense replacement if Wink should leave to run the defense. But these two have been attached at the hip for the longest time. Another suggestion, should Kafka leave, you may see Davis Webb join that staff. I would believe as a quarterback's coach, and maybe Brian Dable goes back to calling the actual plays, similar to what is going to happen with Mike McCarthy this year in Dallas. I don't think we're losing Kafka. I just want to make that clear. I do think that potentially Davis Webb can find himself on this coaching staff. And I also think that Wink Martindale is really a 50-50 right now. We've seen it with other coordinators in the past where sometimes the teams will bump them up some money to keep them around a little longer. Martindale was quoted as saying that he wasn't ready to leave yet. But I also don't necessarily think Martindale, when he made the comment, thought that he would be in a position to get a head coaching job. So, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. But it would be a loss for sure. He did a great job this year with the Giants.
Hey, you know what? Honestly, I'm going to give you my two mixed feelings about the whole situation. As a Cowboys fan, yeah, I would love to see Wink go on to the AFC South and become the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts and not have to see him again. Because, quite frankly, I think this upcoming season, if he's still a Giants DC, they're going to be a much better defense. And that's just the flat honest truth. But then the other part of me is like, man, I want him to stay because of what the NFC East looks like is about to become. You know, we had 3 teams in the playoffs, and you see what Dan Quinn did with Dallas yet again. Keep that nucleus together, continue building on it. So you kind of want to, I want to see a Brian Dable and Wink stay together and build on their team success this year. So that's why I have mixed feelings about it. Obviously, for him, yeah, it's all about career progression. It's all about getting to the highest tier possible in the coaching world, and that's it. So, but as far as Davis Webb, that's a good one, man. I didn't even think about him as a quarterback coach, but man, he would make a damn good one, that's for sure. And I'll tell you, I watched him play one time in college. It was in 2016 when UT was playing at Cal, and to see the way he manages things, the way he, while we don't get to see it on the field, he's a smart quarterback. He's a very smart kid, you know.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a future in coaching. So that's funny you said that.
I actually feel that he's already been an unofficial coach.
Very well so. I mean, usually what a team that carries 3 quarterbacks, that's why that third quarterback turns into a coach, because of all the things they're seeing and hearing on a daily basis, because they're not really seeing the field ever. But yeah, it's one of those. I just, I think it's going to come down to, is Jim Irsay have a drink in his hand when he makes the decision? Because if that's the case, it'll be Jeff Saturday. If he's using common sense and thinking with a clear mind, it's going to be Wink.
Yeah, I would have to say so. I would have to say that Wink, if I was Irsay, he would be my choice. But I hope, we've seen from Irsay that he makes interesting decisions. I'll put it as that. We're going to flip it for a moment before we get back onto more serious stuff as to why I need to avoid social media. I'm going to give you 2 sports-related examples today. On Instagram, there's a video of Cam Newton, and I have no issue with the video. It's essentially showing Cam Newton when he was a prime football player. 2015 particularly, when he had his true great season. They went 15-1, lost the Super Bowl.
I was there.
When I saw this guy try to flip it and call Josh Allen the poor man's Cam Newton, bro, I about lost it. I'm like, dude, Cam Newton has thrown 35 touchdowns once in his career. Josh Allen has done that each of the last 3 years. Okay, check for Josh Allen. Cam Newton, 75 touchdowns. That's an impressive stat over the course of his career. Josh Allen is approaching 40 already. Cam Newton had a 10-year career. Josh Allen, a 5-year career. Rushing yards. Josh Allen is already halfway to what Cam did. 5 years, 10 years. Reiterate that again. The most important stat of all, Josh Allen is 52-24 as a starter. Cam Newton finished his career 7 games over 500. So to the genius who said that Josh Allen is the poor man's Cam Newton, no, sir. He's the rich man's. All right. One other one. I actually see this as kind of therapeutic. I feel like I'm kind of venting now.
I'll tell you why I got away in a second.
Yeah. I'm gonna do one other one of pure genius that I saw today. Okay. Larry Bird was the topic on video. Magic Johnson, Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes. It was good. It was a good segment. Magic is essentially telling younger players, because those two were obviously after Magic, how great Larry Bird was. So you get your share of comments post video. And I noticed that a lot of white people that were on this post felt the need to somehow think that it made sense to compare a Larry Bird, who is a Caucasian American white male, to Luka or to Jokic, because they're white and they're great now. And at some point, I'm saying to myself, is anything going to go off upstairs that's going to make any of you knuckleheads understand that those men are not from the United States. So there is no comparison unless if they share certain things in their skill sets. So essentially, what I learned from this is that just with a lack of using your brain, you're comparing a Luka to a Larry Bird because of their skin tone. It don't get much more ignorant than that.
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
like,
I mean,
this is my first day off in a while, and I normally I avoid these, but I'm like, no, I must.
and that's the problem, man, because it's not like it's a Luka or a Jokic that were born anywhere in the continental United States.
It's
And then
everybody's
moved.
game. Want to make that clear? It's a global game. I just hate the stupidity.
That's the problem, because a lot of people don't realize that how global this game has become, and everyone likes to use the word white and black and just simply go with that and say
base it off
it.
of a skin tone too.
And then
you
but
don't even
it's
do the
not
homework
true.
to know where these people are from.
And I mean, just to see the international side of things with guys like that and what they're bringing over here. And that's why we now see NBA drafts where it's not guys out of college anymore. It's A, people out of the G League, or B, guys, international players.
And quite frankly, I must say, one of the biggest reasons why homegrown American athletes that play basketball that happen to be white, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of these kids are not making the NBA anymore, because if you look at white players, American-born white players, during the 80s and 90s, say, there were a lot more. I'm like, dude, Tyler Hero is like literally the only one. If you go into the 90s,
really have to analyze every team to figure out.
But the fact that you even have to break it down like that, it's kind of feeds to my point about the European players essentially replacing maybe in past seasons before the NBA tapped that resource to go over to Europe. Whereas, say, 20 years ago or so, right, you had like guys from other countries, like, say, a Drazen Petrovic or an Arvydas Sabonis, guys like that, a Tony Kukoc, a Stojakovic. But that was kind of the infancy of what you're seeing now. But yeah, man, I was just like, Larry Bird and Luka?
No.
I was like, outside of the fact that they're both dogs, there's nothing to compare there. But when the guy was like, oh, well, Luka's white and da-da-da, I'm like, you idiot. You're an idiot. That's all I
have. Yeah, it's the same argument. You brought up a good point. Look at baseball players. You know, a lot of them come from the Dominican Republic, Cuba, and some of them are black, some of them are white, but are they the same? No. Just because the skin tone is black does not mean that whatsoever.
That's the whole point I'm making here. Is that for a generation that's supposed to be so sensitive to these kind of things, to be that ignorant with it, I'm like, bro, come on.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm just like, so what does this mean? So Big Papi's black? He's from the Dominican. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's
like they're basically assuming who's who just off of an appearance or a skin tone. But it was so dumb. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna look for a white player, and if that's your only thing to make a comparison on, you got to go Tyler Hero out of the people that play today. And I'm going to keep it a buck right now, since we're talking about Tyler Hero, a previous Miami Heat player two previous Miami Heat players would have bodied Tyler Hero: Dan Marley and Rex Chapman. Oh yeah, said it.
I like it.
Meant
I like it.
I mean, Tyler Hero might. I don't know. Maybe he'll beat Jack Harlow one-on-one, but last time I checked, Jack Harlow's not an NBA player. I'm not even quite sure if he's a rapper. All right. Man.
It's sad, man. I got away from social media for a while for many similar reasons. Obviously, some of them were political, but what I've come to the conclusion with is you can't argue with everybody.
Today was, this was what happens when you get a little too bored.
Yeah, I understand that. And
it was funny, though.
I enjoy that, the comical side of things, because
you have to keep it that way.
when they think it's like a fan thinks they know everything about everything, or they know exactly what needs to be done. And I'm like, I'm not even going to do it right now. Like, I don't even want to bother.
And I could go for an hour about what I seen on the Yankee page today. I'm not even going to bore you with that. All I'm going to say is this. You can't not give credit to a general manager if he came in, say, mid-dynasty. If you give all the credit to a manager during the same time that all these things were happening. People will make me laugh. Talking about Brian Cashman here, folks. At the beginning of the Yankees dynasty, he was not the GM, he was the assistant GM. But the way that some of these Yankee fans describe things, you would think that Brian Cashman was in this boardroom with his back turned to all the other Yankee brass with headphones in and not paying attention. I'm like, guys, come on. This is what we deal with some of these Yankee fans. And I got to say, they are spoiled, and they think that winning World Series are easy.
Huh, huh. Let's watch the Patriots fans. Brett in particular for the next
the
10
last
years.
The last team to win back-to-back championships was the Yankees, 1999, year 2000. I just don't get it. The way these people complain, I don't get it. And for whoever cares, the Yankees actually are the favorites going into the season, according to Vegas. That could, of course, change after spring training happens, after injuries. The Houston Astros are like literally a fingernail behind the Yankees in terms of the odds. But going into the new year, that's what we're looking at. While we speak about the Yanks, Brian Cashman denying Luis Severino playing for his native Dominican Republic in the World Baseball Classic. Short and sweet for me. Luis Severino is a player that is very important to the Yankees' success. The addition of Rodon pushes him a spot back. He should be the fourth starter now. One would think Nestor gets pushed back to 3. Cole and Rodon are your 2 aces. But this is an innings management thing with Severino and has been for the better part of the last few seasons. So I tend to believe that it's all about the team and an all-in approach winning a championship. And don't get me wrong, I love the World Baseball Classic. But I do believe that this takes precedent over that.
Yeah, I agree. You know, from the fan side of things, I love the World Baseball Classic. I was there during the first season. Myself, Mike, and Wags went to a game. It was the Dominican Republic versus, I believe it was U.S. And anyways, Big Papi hits a long shot, left field, and the ball falls right in between Mike's legs. And of course, he gives the ball to a kid. But, you know, just to be able to sit there and go watch these players from your respective country, I think it's great. But as far as from a business side of things, from a baseball side of things, from a team that is definitely all in, you don't go and give Aaron Judge that contract and then go and get a Carlos Rodon unless if you know that these are the pieces, because you're there, you're right there, you've been there the last few years, you know. So from that side of things, I think it's the right move. You know, Severino's a good young pitcher. That's the bottom line. And if he was a left fielder or any type of fielder, I think it'd be a different scenario. But because we're talking about a pitcher, and because we're talking about the state of mind or the New York state of mind, that you have to do that. I'm 100% for it. I've been for it in every sport, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, whatever the case may be. That's why we saw the Pro Bowl. Now we don't see Super Bowl players playing in it, you know, things like that. It's just, I love it. I think it's the right move, honestly, because of what you guys, the bigger picture right now.
Current Yankee manager Aaron Boone was released from the Yankees after playing the hero in 2003's ALCS walk-off home run against the Boston Red Sox. Some people might forget. Why did Aaron Boone get released? Well, it wasn't baseball related. He tore his knee playing competitive basketball, and a provision in his contract stated specifically you cannot play basketball. He tore his knee, and to be very honest with you, I think that was the first step in the process of acquiring Alex Rodriguez for the 2004 and beyond season, because I don't believe that would have ever happened if Aaron Boone doesn't tear his knee. ultimately they traded Alfonso Soriano for A-Rod. But it's funny how things work. Were it not for that, Yankees don't get A-Rod. And I guess when people will say, well, what did you think about A-Rod? Quite frankly, I think it's a mixed bag. I think it ultimately comes down to how you view him. There were highs and there were lows, and they were very profound highs and very profound lows. But yeah, that's what led to that. And I just think it's funny that something like this would happen with the situation of, something similar. He's the manager now. Severino could get potentially hurt in a tournament like this. And I do believe that's the reason why, quite frankly, it's just not on the table. Something interesting that I saw, a little bit of a Twitter beef. I don't know if you got your hands on this or saw this or anything.
Is it I'm trying to think of some Twitter beef right now between. I'm sure once I see it, I'm gonna know. Drop it on me.
All right, this was interesting.
Oh,
Joe
yes.
Staley, I spelled Kayvon wrong, pardon me. This was interesting. And I got Kayvon's back a little more than Joe Staley, and I'll explain why. It's not because I'm a Giant fan either. I think when you're talking as a fan or as an observer of a game, I don't necessarily believe that a more mature player, a veteran guy who has actually retired now, should go at a rookie. That's just me. I wasn't necessarily endeared with Kayvon's responses to Joe Staley with who are you? I think he knows who he was. Bigger than that, Michael Strahan comes to the defense of Kayvon Thibodeau saying, hey, Joe, remember when you were a rookie? I had my way with you.
I didn't see that part.
Yeah,
Nice.
and Strahan basically was like, leave my rookie alone and come at me if you want some of this. Which I get it, because Michael Strahan has kind of served as a bit of a mentor for Kayvon Thibodeau since his arrival in New York. So I do understand that. Believe me, Kayvon needs to get more mature too. That comes with time. I'm not defending him completely either, because I'll admit, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Snow Angel. And not because Nick Foles was dead next to him. I don't think he knew that Nick Foles was knocked out like that. I think it was more so just the fact of like, dude, that's one play of many. There's nothing wrong with getting excited. But at the end of the day, buddy, Staley basically said, oh, you get bodied by average tackles. And I was like, oh, boy, this is going to be fun. And congrats on your 4 sacks. And I'm just like, dude, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
It's sad because from a maturity level, Kayvon, it's his rookie year.
That's what I'm getting at. Like, what does Joe have to gain from this?
Nothing.
If anything, he comes down.
And and that's the problem, because when I think a lot of people are so infatuated with what we've been blessed with as of late. You talk about a Micah Parsons and 13 and a half sacks as a rookie. You talk about Nick Bosa as a rookie. You talk about Aldon Smith. But if you look at the real greats, it took them their rookie year to figure out the speed of the game.
Michael Strahan didn't have a great rookie year.
DeMarcus Ware didn't have a great rookie year. Reggie White, his was okay. Most defensive ends, when they break into the league, it takes some time.
Lawrence Taylor had 4 more sacks than Kayvon Thibodeau in his rookie year, and sacks didn't even count that year.
So, and that's the thing. It's a guy like Joe Staley to be attacking a Kayvon Thibodeau and saying this and that. I mean,
that's what I mean.
It's, and not to mention, hey, making Snow Angels, dude, he's a rookie. That's called a rookie mistake. That's called the learning curve for a rookie. All that. That's when you're supposed to make those mistakes, not in your 15th year in the league, or not as a retired San Francisco 49er great
who got in his feelings.
Oh,
Lawrence Tynes joined in too. Staley was like, bro, you were a kicker. Strahan was like, "Yeah, the kicker that sent us to the Super Bowl against you guys." So this
Strahan's ready, man.
How could he not be? The man's always
he's
working,
ready to go. I love it.
Always fired up, Michael Strahan. Always ready to go.
Should have been a Cowboy.
Almost was.
Almost was, but I'm not mad. But yeah, it's as far as Kayvon Thibodeau goes, I mean, honestly, I see the beef with Micah Parsons that he's getting right now from a lot of people because Micah simply said, "Hey, Lane Johnson, hey, big brother, you go out there, bring another championship for the NFC East." And people get tearing him up about this, and it's like I
Very
kind of
good. I
relate.
wanted you to bring that up, and that's a weird one because there's something to be taken from that shows a lot of humility and a lot of decency, but it is not what fans want to read.
It's not what fans want to read, but what we as fans need to understand is one thing, that while they play for their respective owner for that respective team, they all joined one thing, and that's to protect the shield of the NFL. So, that's why there's the NFLPA and the NFL.
Sure, of course.
So when I see players like a Micah Parsons acknowledging the greatness of a rival team, it doesn't bother me because, it's just like the same thing I said a couple of weeks ago with Jason Peters coming to Dallas. Here's a guy that hated Dallas, talked about how much he hated Dallas, and then just got done wearing the star and might be wearing the star again next year. So as fans, yeah, we hate this.
And you never know who's going to be your teammate.
You never know.
Look at the beef with Josh Donaldson and Garrett Cole.
Yeah, and now look at them. And that's why and I think that's also shows a lot of who Micah Parsons is as a person. He's a good guy, So when you're talking about a Micah Parsons looking like he should, or looking like what Joe Staley should have looked like, Micah Parsons is a second-year kid. He's still a kid.
Right.
Joe Staley is a grown man, but the wisdom said that one is actually more mature than the other. But it is what it is.
And at the end of the day, there weren't too many 49ers coming to Joe Staley's defense. That's another thing that I found rather interesting with all of that. Before we get out of here, concussions on the rise. I know off air, you suggested, can we really be looking at flag football 20 years from now, 25, 30 years from now? I don't think so. But having said that, I don't know, man. This is never an easy one. I mean, are they ever going to outlaw boxing?
Right. You just took my point away.
Damn it. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. That was good. It was going to be, are they going to outlaw professional combat sports, UFC, for example? Boxing, that's one thing. But UFC, we're talking about guys getting choked out and everything. It's almost like the days of the gladiators, So I think the only way, as I thought about this more, the only way we're ever going to see a scenario where we're actually going into a flag football league, it's not going to be because of the league. I think it's going to be because of the players. But based on where the players come from, based on what we see, based on the fact that
the state of Florida, the state of Texas,
California,
come on, dude,
it's not happening. It's not happening.
No, and I'm not diluting any of the realness, but like anything else, it's a calculated risk that you take to make a decent amount of money, and way more money than most people in the population. Because, to be fair, hey, I live in Orlando or outside Orlando, right? Every time we get on I-4, for instance, or any of these highways, that's taking a calculated risk to make peanuts compared to what the guys that we cover do.
And you know what? Andrew Luck took a calculated risk.
Indeed.
And that's why I don't think the NFL will go away, because the players will always have that option to play. And like everyone says, we all have a purpose on this planet. Quite frankly, that's their purpose. Every person that puts on that helmet, they have God-given abilities that most people would die for to even have a percentage of that, you know? And so that's
If
their
you ever
purpose.
find out what Gary Bettman or Rob Manfred's purposes are, I'd love to know. NHL and MLB commissioners. No, but I'll tell you though, it's a lot, man. Because what's interesting is the head trauma has always been a part of this game. That's nothing new.
No, we just have the technology and advancement
To
in medicine
truly
to
see it
know.
now,
Yeah.
and I'm aware of that. But
And
what I find interesting is that in today's football, I feel that you have more non-contact injuries than anything else. And I've said that on previous shows too, where in the 70s and the 80s, some of the most fierce, physical, sometimes people would suggest dirty times in the NFL. You know,
AKA the best times.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you can't tell the story of the NFL without some of those iconic matchups. But there were other variables always. There's always something. Like a lot of these guys were addicted to pain pills, medications. It was almost like just eating candy back in that era. Similar to what you would see on the road show in the 1980s and 90s of professional wrestling.
You know, I will say this. If there's ever a thing that needs to be fixed in the NFL, it's accountability. Because what we saw happen with Tua this year,
Yeah.
fool me once, okay,
Right.
shame on me, you know, but if we see that happen on a constant basis where a coach pulls a quick one, and I mean, it's always easy to go blame the team doctor.
Yeah.
But when it happens again later, that's the part that scares me, is the power that some of these coaches thinks they have that is going to affect players that way. Because
It's really funny that you said team doctor. I'm going to make one more example to professional wrestling. The reason I'm bringing this up, I was watching Dark Side of the Ring before we went live, and I was watching the episode on the steroid trial of '92 with the then WWF. So it's pretty damn funny when you think about it. It is pretty damn funny. Like Zahorian goes down. He was the doctor. Vince McMahon. They try him in Long Island. His headquarters are in Connecticut. The doctor's from PA. Like, make it make sense. For the government has such a high win percentage in these cases. I know I'm kind of going left with this, but
think about this. Think about if we had a rule in place. I don't think this will ever happen, but this is just me. Every time we see a player get put on concussion protocol, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in Tua's case, we saw it for a good amount of time. I think if we see a scenario like this with a head coach and it's like, what the hell happened? Team doctor, yeah. The coach should be suspended too. He should be suspended without pay if there is a sign, any sign of negligence in there that, you know, the player's health, it didn't matter.
And the sad truth is that you're going to see that it's like, how do I say this properly? The people that cover the game, the people that watch the game, you know, all that, they've come desensitized. They've become desensitized to these things that happen. And when you become desensitized to things like this, I do believe that it takes away some of the logic as to why this is supposed to matter in the first place.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, that's.
I don't really think there's any more to say on it other than, I guess the questions, because we're fans, right? They're not going to take away our football, right? No, they're not.
No, and it's just crazy. We're talking about this a couple of days after we talked about I said since 2001, the 44 deaths since 2021, with most of these players having some sort of CTE issue, and that's why I tie it in with the concussions big time, because it's a sad thing, man. But like I said, Bernard Pollard, NFL will be gone 20 to 30 years. No, it won't, because end of the day, we see guys like Andrew Luck, who walked away from the game. We saw arguably the greatest linebacker to ever play decide it's not worth it, and Luke Kuechly. These players will always have that option to simply walk away and do something else. And for that reason, I don't think the NFL will ever go anywhere.
I tend to agree. I definitely tend to agree. This is funny before we get out of here.
Uh-oh.
I want to get your thoughts on this.
I
don't even think his football was. This is absurd.
Look, I went to the Super Bowl. The year the Carolina Panthers played against the Denver Broncos, I was there. I got to stand on the field. I got to see Peyton Manning giving his speech at the end of the game. All that. I was there. It was one of the greatest experiences. I shook the commissioner's hand. I talked with Brett Favre. I conversated with Rob Lowe. So many people. Anyways, I have a Ziploc bag of Tom Brady's fart that I'm willing to sell for $150,000 if people are going to sit here and pay 90 grand for a bag of sand. Like, this is ridiculous, man. Like, oh, this is ridiculous, because I'm literally going to go get a bag and just fill it up with air. And I think I saw that in a meme, so that's not my own creation. But it's just like, come on,
but
man.
yeah, like, but when I think about what the money went for that, what we thought was his final touchdown, it's just gotten so dumb, dude. Like, I don't even have words.
I know, and there's going to be something else. There's going to be. I guarantee it. And you know what? Brett probably is trying to figure out how he can gather $90,000 because he would do it.
Yeah,
it's. When I saw that,
do you think he would mix the sand with the mulch? Is the question.
I think he would have a designated area where it would only be Tom Brady sand. And if a piece of mulch touches it, that whole mulch area is getting burnt.
Yeah, it's kind of like contaminating a crime scene. Then maybe you could have like different layers of the sand. Like, this area will be for Spygate. This area will be for Deflategate.
But we'll talk about, man.
You want to put
everything. No, it's I guess it goes to prove that people will pay whatever.
Well, I mean, people that can throw that kind of money around have it. That goes without saying.
Yeah, but what's to say us average Joes, there's not a lot of them where like, man, I wish that was $90 because I would have paid for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, like my buddy Dorney, diehard Mets fan. He's got a couple of Shea Stadium seats, and he'll like buy stuff on impulse from the Mets, and I get that.
That's like, different.
That is different because we're fans.
Yeah, that's the stadium.
There's no value in a piece of sand.
Yeah, that's a piece of history. The sand is not historic. The Shea Stadium seats are. Every fan that left Cowboy Stadium with a piece of the field or a seat. Oh yeah, ask away, Jay. We're not going to give our predictions yet. That's my boy Jay right there. Shout out. He's a big Eagles fan. He's
Go ahead, Jay.
California.
Type me ask a question, but wait on that for a second.
But yeah, no, it's when I see people leaving with stadium artifacts, whether it's the turf or sand from the stadium, that we know that sand has been there since that stadium came around. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, is that like Tom Brady sand? Like, there was a lot of sand around him. Are you sure you got every particle of sand?
I mean, what's next? Are we going to be like getting like blood from the holding cell in the old vet? Like come on, bro.
Oh, that's an idea.
It is an idea.
That's an idea there. Hey,
it is an idea.
Write that down. We might need that one later. I'm waiting. I'm going to text him.
Yeah, I like this question. I really like this question. Jay, I'm going to read you something that I wrote. Ooh. Let Zappy mull on this for a second.
Oh, it's going to be tied into what I sent you the other day.
Check this out, Jay. Just bear with me. I put this on the podcast page on Facebook a few days back. Well, let me ask you a question. Jay, do you consider Kareem Abdul-Jabbar the GOAT? That's a good starting point for this because some people, although he is the scoring leader, would say it's either him or Mike. But I am going to read this to you.
Before you do, because yours is actually more important. Everything you bring up is perfect, and I don't want to finish after you. I think what you,
Jay, with all respect, pal, I think you answered your own question.
There's a guy that we just recently lost that has 11 NBA titles.
Yeah.
I think you know who I'm talking about, Jay.
Absolutely.
I think you do too.
Absolutely.
11 NBA titles, and we bring up the conversations about GOATs and all that, and we came to the conclusion that he was the GOAT of his time. But one of the Lopez brothers, I believe it was Brooke.
I saw this.
So Brooke Lopez just topped Bill Russell,
right,
on career points.
Right.
Because of that right there, Lopez is forever greater than Bill Russell because of points alone. Bullshit. No, absolutely not. I don't even want to get fired up.
This is my take, and it's funny that I'm glad Jay asked this question. No, 6, not James. I'm assuming you're referring to Mike's. I'm assuming he's referring to Mike's 6 championship. So Jay,
I was referring to Bill Russell. I was referring to
Bill
Russell
I'm saying,
and Brooke Lopez.
No, yeah. All right, Jay. I think Michael Jordan is the greatest player in NBA history. But the narrative in this photo, bear with me, I'm going to turn this around to everyone. You notice how we only got Scottie Pippen here and you have an army following LeBron? All right. Bear with me. Wow, I really did write a novel here.
Yeah, you did.
This picture insinuates that all the guys behind LeBron were superstars when they played with him. For one, that's not Orlando Dwight, Milwaukee Ray, and why Mario Chalmers and J.R. Smith made this picture is beyond me. That leaves the big 3 in Cleveland of LeBron, Irving, and Love, and the big 3 in Miami of LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. In LA, it was a 2-man show with LeBron and AD, with contributions from role players similar to what Michael had with Scottie in Chicago. Jordan had excellent shooters in Paxson and Kerr who served as 3-point specialists during their respective three-peats. They were the Ray Allen, so to speak, of those teams. Ray Allen in Miami, of course. Jordan also had his big 3 of himself, Pippen, and Horace Grant, first three-peat. Then himself, Pippen, and Rodman, second three-peat. Horace Grant was important to the first Bulls three-peat. When he left for Orlando, he was a huge swing reason why the Orlando Magic beat the Chicago Bulls in '95. His departure also led to Rodman coming on, and he was the greatest rebounder of his era. The picture suggests that Jordan and Pippen didn't need help. Were that the case, the Detroit Pistons don't beat the Bulls 3 times in 4 years. A similarity that LeBron and Jordan have is that they were not successful against the best teams they ever ran into. Jordan never beat Larry Bird's Celtics in 3 tries and only beat the bad boy Pistons once in 4 tries. Those 2 teams often played Magic and Kareem's Lakers in the finals. LeBron was 1-2 versus Duncan's Spurs, and in the finals 1-3 versus Curry's Warriors. Hang with me, Jay. Just going to put you up here for a second. Russell, hands down. I respect your opinion. Don't agree, though. I think in order to be the GOAT, you have to do it on every facet of the game. Bill Russell's offense cannot make him the greatest basketball player ever. I do believe Shaq and Kobe's Lakers, as well as Magic and Jabbar's Lakers, would have had their way with anyone that LeBron or Jordan led, because less talented teams ended their seasons. Jordan, to me, is the greatest player because of his 2-way dominance, both scoring-wise and being a top-tier defender. But the message here.
He agrees.
Yeah, we see that. Man, I wrote a novel on this thing.
Yeah.
I guess the ultimate point, because if I continue to read this, somebody might fall asleep. No matter how great, and I used Wilt Chamberlain as a focal point on this, no one player will not single-handedly beat a great team. It was proven with LeBron. his first run in Cleveland. It was proven with Michael before he got Pippen. It's been proven time and time and time again. And I think the only time where you can make the argument that maybe one player single-handedly won an NBA Finals, it would have to be in series that were literally decided with one-on-ones in the paint. And a guy who would stand out to me would be a Hakeem Olajuwon, who did it to the New York Knicks and then the Orlando Magic. But it doesn't happen often. And even if you look at Mike's NBA Finals, he gets a lot of credit, as he should. And I will say this again and again. He is the greatest singular talent in NBA history. But Scottie Pippen, sadly, doesn't get a lot of credit. At the end of the day, Scottie Pippen was guarding the great Magic Johnson. And that certainly took a big burden off of Mike's shoulders, as well as any point guard the Bulls could have thrown there. So I guess grading a GOAT, it's difficult. Very difficult. You know, good friend of the show, Robert Cletus, he thinks Ted Jabbar is the greatest.
And I've told you this before, I don't think LeBron is the greatest of his time. When you're comparing a guy like Steph Curry and LeBron's been around a lot longer than Steph Curry. Let's see where they're both at that point in their careers. And as far as LeBron goes, great. He's going to break the all-time scoring champ. Like, proud of him. Well-deserved. If Jordan didn't retire multiple times, and if Jordan also didn't go to college, and if Jordan didn't have all the accolades that he has for defensive teams, everything like that, yeah, I don't care. That's why I bring up the point about Lopez and Bill Russell is points does not tell the whole story. If real fans will sit there and analyze every last detail. The younger generation is going to analyze the points because a lot of things they expect things to be given to them, so they're going to go with the easy stuff and not the stuff that you have to actually work for. And I say that wholeheartedly and not trying to aggravate people.
And like I said, clearly this picture is geared to favor Michael Jordan, which I have no problem with because I favor Michael Jordan in this argument. I just hate that behind Michael Jordan are not key contributors because that's suggesting that Mike didn't get any help. And at the end of the day, that's just not true.
It's not. Everyone gets help, like you said.
Jay Drexler was the 1-2 with Olajuwon.
Oh, God. They
had some good shooters. Like they had Kenny the Jet. They had Vernon Maxwell. They had Robert Horry. But none of those guys were, I wouldn't say during that era were considered a third star. It was basically those two against Penny and Shaq. And those two the year before, I guess you would say against Ewing and Starks.
But it took a Rockets team going out there and prying a Clyde Drexler, the Blazers, in order for that to happen.
The second one, the first one, he wasn't. Yeah. But Jay, that particular Rockets team was the lowest seeded team to ever win an NBA Finals, which is still a fact to this day. They were the 6th seed, defeating the Orlando Magic. And I will say this. Nick Anderson doesn't miss Mario Elie. My cousin played against his nephew, actually, in CYO ball. Yeah, he was. They did have some good shooters. And I will tell you this much, Jay. I do believe that if the Chicago Bulls and the Houston Rockets would have run into each other during that era.
Oh, that would have been a very interesting finals.
The Rockets could have presented problems to the Bulls that nobody else did. They had the shooters, and they also had a center in Olajuwon, who I think would have kept Chicago's bigs in constant foul trouble. And Olajuwon does have a head-to-head winning record against Michael Jordan, which is interesting.
Luke Longley was not going to slow him down. Luke Longley was not going to slow him down. And
neither was Bill Wennington, looking like
yeah.
He worked at Home Depot.
Or Bill Cartwright, or old Robert Parrish.
Yeah,
they were not. That would have been that to me is why everyone talks about. Oh, I wish we would have saw LeBron and Kobe in the finals. Seeing Olajuwon and Jordan, I think, is a finals that fans from the '90s, '80s missed. I think that would have been a great one right there.
For sure, absolutely. Dave, you get to see this before we get out of here. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging with us, Jay. I like what you brought here and opened up a good conversation. We'll be back soon, man. Baseball's on the horizon, similar to what we did in the NFL. we're going to have our divisional previews. We are out until next